Good evening, Robert. Please state
Good
your
evening,
name
Mr. Marone.
and address, please.
I'll be talking about the job performance of Derek Kennedy, but first, you did get a letter CC'd from my girlfriend, Melissa Baer, where she accused Mario Celico of stalking her. I just want to state for the record, nobody except Ms. Chiaffi responded at all. That man's a psychopath, and he's a creep, and he's on the town council.
Mr. Lombardo, if I may, we were advised by counsel not to.
Right, I got you, but it's a serious issue. But I think that shows, which I started last week, is the immorality on the town council. I think we've gone into where it's immoral, what's going on here in town of Westerly. But nobody should have to live like that.
Mr. Lombardo, may I please request that you confine your comments to the
I will.
town manager's performance evaluation, please.
I just wanted to let you
Thank
know that. Second of all, as we all know, that Derek Kennedy might have another job, and so on behalf of countless residents, we wish him the very best. If he does leave, I think the celebration could almost be as good as the 350th birthday celebration. Anyway, but now we know what Mr. Kennedy was doing instead of watching out for the citizens of Westerly. Mr. Gagne asked the Lord to take care of everybody but the citizens of Westerly. That's what we need, the citizens of Westerly need, is the Lord. Not the town manager, not the town council, but somebody has to help them with the water. Now, while you were high-fiving each other last week on the great job, I spoke to Mr. Colio. He lives on Beatrice.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lombardo. Your sign-up sheet requests that you speak on the performance evaluation, not the water.
Right, but this is job performance.
You're talking about job performance
Yeah,
with
right,
regards
what
to...
he was doing instead of watching the people of Westerly,
Go ahead.
he was negotiating his contract with Mansfield. But I spoke to a Westerly resident who has a daughter who has Hodgkin's lymphoma. She's fighting for her life. Okay? She lives on Beatrice Avenue. She has tubes going into her chest. She gets chemo. And on Friday night, she was placed into the tub at her home, wrapped up the tubes so they wouldn't get wet, and she immediately was burnt. She had blisters all over her body. She had them all over her face. Her nose started bleeding, and she was rushed to the hospital. They didn't know what happened to her. Now, of course, when you have chemotherapy, your immune system's low. But this is a result of the chemical that was in the water. And this is why, when the people in Connecticut say, could you check with the Westerly Hospital, Mr. Carina, and find out if there's anything going on there that might be attributed to the water, they say, no, we're not going to do that. It's too much trouble. But you people have entered into an area where it's immoral to do that to somebody. Immoral. And we put up with that for far too long. Mr. Simmons said if he had that information Friday during the day, he would have immediately released it to everybody in Pawcatuck and Stonington. You had the information, you did nothing. That's immoral. You don't need to know what the speed limits are, like Mr. Gagne said. Mr. Simmons knew what the speed limits were without needing a book. But I think you should go talk to Mr. Colaya and talk to his daughter, who had to suffer burns. They went to the hospital. He said she couldn't get any relief for days. And then he called Derek Kennedy 3 times, He didn't return any calls. And then finally, they went out there and tested the pH and said, oh, your pH is fine. But that's a week later. So, where did the water in their house get flushed? Into the bathtub. All you had to do was tell people there was chemical in that water, and you didn't, and it went into that girl's bathtub. And she's fighting for her life. Good job, gentlemen. Good job. Should be ashamed of yourselves. Now, let's talk about all the arbitration awards that Mr. Kennedy's lost. The first one he lost, it was with the back pay. His testimony was so bizarre that the attorney for the police could not believe that he ever negotiated a contract before. And they asked him, have you ever negotiated a contract before? No, I've sat in on some. Now, I won't read everything. Now, according to an email from Josh Putman to Derek Kennedy, that was going to cost the town about $35,000, that Derek Kennedy blunder. Because he doesn't know that when it says effective date July to July, he didn't know that the date was July. He thought it was the date you signed the contract. Now he's either lying about that or he's stupid. But when he says he's never done it, and he submits a resume to the town of Westerly in 2015 highlighting his major or key accomplishments, negotiated with new and existing bargaining units for multi-year agreements. He's a liar. He's a liar. He's a liar. You don't say you negotiate with new existing bargaining units for multi-year agreements if you sat in. That's like saying you're a trial attorney when you've never tried a case. You've watched one. The next grievance, you've lost that as well. And that took care of 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, this is the one where Richard Silva, Derek Kennedy, and Mario Celico are quoted in the paper saying, oh, it's just a different interpretation. We have a different interpretation. Yes, there's a rational interpretation, and there's an irrational interpretation. And this is what the arbitrator said. In order to uphold the town's position, Derek Kennedy's position, it would be necessary for me to alter the relative wording of paragraph 4 in the 2016 to 2019 contract and replace it with the old contract. Conduct well beyond my authority. So while you guys say he does a great job, I haven't seen it. Never. He's lost this one. Now, the next one that's coming up is the $6,000 a year on the health care for when we retire. That's the line he buried. Remember the one he buried, didn't tell you about? You're going to end up paying that too. And as I said a year ago, this is $1 million mistake. That man, Mr. Derek Kennedy, a liar, he'd never negotiated a contract. He got eaten up over and over again. So, when you go back there and talk about your job performance, I'd like to know what he does well. But seeing he's out the door, that's a really great step. I can't congratulate Derek Kennedy enough. I will be celebrating tonight if he gets it. I know a lot of people are watching the town of Mansfield, hoping that he gets announced as president. But there's more work to do here. We got immorality going on in this town, and I think you made her do a lot more praying to God, Mr. Gagne. That's the last thing. The other thing I'll note is not too many people showed up for their accommodations. Half of people didn't come. I can tell you, I don't know anybody that works for the town of Westerly that doesn't think that Derek Kennedy is a despicable man. Nobody. I know nobody that thinks he's despicable. And to watch you give an accommodation to Sean Lacey while you're trying to take away his civil rights and an age discrimination, you're going to lose that one too. And I hope you have to pay his legal fees because you need a hit. But you're sitting here congratulating him and then stabbing him in the back. I took pictures. The hypocrisy was unbelievable. Thank you.